We tell stories of human way, not with artificial voices or AI slop. In the end, what's HFI without humanity? Subscribe to keep it this way. My name is Amir Sohal. Let's begin. The city was silent, except for the low hum of the distant ships flying overhead. On the edge of the human colony, a lone figure moved quickly through the dark streets. His name was Kale, a former soldier, a father, and now a man filled with grief and rage. Tonight, he had received news that shattered his world. His son, Jaren, had been killed. Not in battle, not by accident, but as a game for alien hunters. Kale's heart pounded as he approached the small, hidden communications hub. He pushed the door open quietly, careful not to make a sound. Inside, the room was dimly lit, wires hanging from the walls, screens flickering with information from across the galaxy. Kale did not care about the danger here. Nothing mattered now except one thing: vengeance. He placed his hand on the control panel and pulled up the last transmission from Jaren. The boy's face appeared on the screen, laughing, holding a small model ship he had built. Kale's chest tightened. The memory of that smile, now gone forever, burned in his mind. "They took him for sport," Kale whispered, his voice trembling. "They killed my son for fun." The hub's AI recognized his distress. Warning: emotional state critical. Suggest retreat. Kale ignored it. He had no intention of retreating. Not now. Not ever. He tapped into the network, pulling up every detail he could find about the alien species that had done this. They were called the Ilthari, tall, sleek creatures with gray skin and black, empty eyes. They had no empathy, no care for life. To them, humans were nothing but prey. Kale studied their war reports, their hunting logs, even intercepted conversations between the Ilthari leaders. Each piece of information fueled his determination. He memorized every patrol route, every security measure, every weakness. The Ilthari believed they were untouchable, but they had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated a father's fury. Hours passed. Kale barely slept. He ate nothing, drank little. His mind was a storm of plans and memories. He remembered holding Jaren in his arms the night before the Ilthari attack, promising to protect him. That promise now seemed like a bitter joke. Suddenly, an alert flashed on the main screen. Unauthorized access detected in Ilthari Sector 7. Kale's eyes narrowed. This was his chance. He had found a weak point in their patrols, a small tunnel leading into their main war chamber. It was dangerous, almost certainly a trap, but he had no choice. He had to act before the Ilthari moved to destroy more colonies. Kale packed his gear: light armor, a plasma blade, and several grenades designed to disrupt alien tech. He took one last look at the comms hub. It was a place of information, not action. The real work had to be done in their own territory. As he stepped outside, the wind bit at his face, carrying the faint smell of metal and ozone from the passing ships. Kale felt the weight of his mission pressing down on him. This was not just about revenge anymore. This was about stopping the Ilthari before they killed again. The streets were eerily quiet. Kale moved like a shadow, slipping between buildings, avoiding surveillance drones. Every step brought him closer to the enemy, and every step increased the tension in his chest. He knew that once he entered their territory, there would be no turning back. Finally, he reached the outskirts of the Ilthari command zone. A tall fence of shimmering energy blocked his way. Kale crouched behind a crate and activated his stealth device. The field shimmered around him, blending him into the night. He held his breath and moved forward, each step calculated, precise. Inside the war chamber, the Ilthari were unaware of the intruder. They were preparing for their next hunt, discussing strategies to eliminate more humans. Kale listened, hiding in the shadows. Their voices were cold, mechanical, without emotion. "They will not survive the next cycle," one of the Ilthari said. "We will harvest their strengths and leave the weak for sport." Kale's fist clenched. The thought of others suffering like Jaren had was unbearable. He tightened his grip on his blade, ready to strike. But he knew brute force alone would not win this battle. He needed strategy, precision, and timing. He scanned the room, noting the control panels, the weapon racks, and the exits. There were too many guards to take head-on. He needed a distraction. He spotted a row of energy containers along one wall. With a flick of his wrist, he sent a small magnetic grenade rolling toward them. It exploded silently, releasing a cloud of disruptive energy that short-circuited the Ilthari surveillance systems. Chaos erupted. The aliens scrambled, trying to understand what happened. Kale used the confusion to slip further inside, moving closer to the central console. He could see holographic maps of human colonies, detailed notes about defenses, and lists of humans marked for hunting. Each detail fueled his anger and sharpened his focus. Kale paused at the console, his mind racing. He could destroy the data, but that would only slow them down temporarily. No, he needed to send a message. He needed the Ilthari to know that humans were not helpless, that they had underestimated the fire that burned within a father's heart. He tapped into the communication network and sent a coded message to the human resistance. They took Jaren. They will pay. Prepare for retaliation. The message was brief, but it carried the weight of fury and promise. Somewhere out there, humans would read it and know that Kale was already inside the enemy's lair, taking the first steps toward justice. Footsteps echoed in the hall behind him. Kale spun around, blade raised. A Ilthari guard had spotted him. Its black eyes glowed with suspicion and malice. Kale moved swiftly, striking with precision. The guard fell, silent and lifeless. His heart pounded, but there was no time to dwell. Every second counted. He pressed deeper into the war chamber, each movement bringing him closer to the heart of the alien operations. He passed rows of weapons, cages holding alien creatures, and strange machines that hummed with dangerous energy. The Ilthari were preparing for something massive, and Kale knew he had to stop it. Suddenly, a holographic alert flashed across the room. Intruder detected. Security lockdown initiated. Kale's mind raced. The war chamber would seal in seconds, trapping him inside. He had to act fast, using a combination of stealth and agility. He climbed onto a maintenance shaft and disappeared into the vents above the chamber. The Ilthari scrambled below, unaware of his exact location. Inside the narrow, dark vent, Kale's breathing was steady, controlled. Every sound from below reminded him of what he had lost, but also what he had to protect. He remembered Jaren's laughter, his curiosity, his endless questions about the stars. Kale promised himself that his son's death would not be in vain. The vent led to a smaller chamber, one that overlooked the Alien Council's main table. Kale could see the leaders, tall and imposing, discussing strategies, unaware of the human watching them from above. This was his moment. He could gather intelligence, learn their plans, and strike when they least expected it. Hours passed. Kale moved silently, observing, recording, and planning. Every detail mattered. Every conversation, every gesture of the aliens told him more about their weaknesses. The council was powerful, but arrogance blinded them. They believed no human could penetrate their defenses. They were wrong. As dawn approached, Kale sent another coded message to the human resistance. I am inside. I see their plans. We have a chance. He knew that this was only the beginning. The real battle would come soon, and he had to be ready. The loss of Jaren had left a void in his heart, but also forged a new purpose. He would dismantle the Ilthari from within, piece by piece, until they understood the cost of underestimating a human father. Kale rested for a moment, hidden in the shadows, his mind focused and sharp. The war chamber below was alive with activity, but he was invisible, a ghost among predators. He whispered a promise into the empty air. They will pay. I will make them pay. And with that, Kale prepared for the next phase of his mission. The desperate call had been answered, and a war of cunning, courage, and vengeance had begun. Kale crouched above the Alien Council's war room, hidden inside the narrow vent. The room below was a hive of movement and strategy. Tall Ilthari officers walked briskly between holographic maps, screens showing human colonies, and cages containing strange alien beasts. Their conversations were cold, precise, as if every life outside their species was meaningless. Kale's heart pounded, but he moved silently, his every motion measured, every detail mattered. He memorized the paths of the guards, the timing of the door locks, and the patterns of the security drones. One wrong move, one slip of his hand, and he would be detected, He whispered into his communicator, sending another encrypted message to human resistance. I am inside. They are planning something massive. Wait for my signal. Trust me. The war room was larger than Kale had imagined. A long, glowing table in the center projected a three-dimensional map of several human colonies. Red lights flickered over specific locations, marking targets for the Ilthari hunt. Kale's stomach tightened. The humans were in danger, and he had only a few hours to act. He dropped down silently from the vent into a shadow corner. The floor hummed with alien energy, strange glyphs glowing faintly under his boots. He approached one of the consoles, careful to avoid the infrared scanners above. His fingers moved quickly over the holographic interface, recording plans and downloading key data to his portable drive. Every second brought him closer to both victory and discovery. He could see how advanced the aliens truly were, and how human ingenuity had to outsmart them. Suddenly, an Ilthari officer stopped and turned sharply toward the shadows. Kale froze. His breathing slowed, his muscles tensed. The officer's black eyes scanned the room. Kale's heart thumped in his ears. He thought of Jaren, of the boy's smile, and drew strength from it. The officer moved on. Kale exhaled slowly. Every moment inside this chamber was a dance with death, but he knew he had to stay. He had to learn everything he could before striking. He moved deeper into the war room, slipping behind massive machinery that powered the Ilthari weapons. His eyes scanned a rack filled with alien rifles and grenades. Kale had seen human weapons before, but these were unlike anything he had ever imagined. Silent energy weapons, devices that could immobilize a person instantly, and explosives that could tear through reinforced walls. He took careful note. One day, he would use these weaknesses against them. From his hidden vantage point, he noticed the council leaders, 3 massive Ilthari figures seated at the main table. Their eyes glowed faintly as they discussed strategies with cold efficiency. Kale listened, recording every word. The humans underestimate our reach, one of the leaders said, its voice low and metallic. By the next cycle, we will harvest their colonies systematically. The weak will fall first. The strong will amuse us. Kale's fingers clenched around his blade. The way they spoke of humans as objects, as prey, filled him with fury. But anger alone would not win this war. He needed strategy, timing, and patience. A low alarm suddenly sounded. Red lights flashed across the room. Kale ducked behind a console as guards shouted in their harsh alien tongue. One drone hovered near his hiding spot, scanning the area. Kale held his breath, feeling the heat of fear burn in his chest. He had to act fast. Reaching into his belt, he pulled out a small EMP device and hurled it toward the drone. It exploded silently, sending a wave of energy that short-circuited the machine. Sparks flew, and the drone fell to the ground useless. The guards screamed in confusion. Kale slipped further into the shadows, deeper into the heart of the war room. He found another console and began analyzing their communication network. The Ilthari were planning a massive hunt across multiple colonies, coordinating their fleets and soldiers to strike simultaneously. Kale's mind raced. If he could disrupt this communication, he could save thousands of humans and send a clear message to the Ilthari that humans were not helpless. As he worked, he noticed a strange device in the center of the room, a crystal-like orb pulsing with light. It seemed to be controlling the energy field that powered the war room. Kale realized that if he could disable it, he could create a temporary blackout, giving him a chance to escape or strike. But approaching it was risky. Guards patrolled constantly, and the energy field surrounding the orb was deadly. Kale studied the patterns. Timing would be everything. Hours passed as he waited for the perfect moment. Sweat dripped down his face. His body ached, but he focused on the task. The memory of Jaren, of his laughter, of the promise he had made, kept him going. Finally, a guard walked away, leaving the orb unprotected for a brief moment. Kale seized the opportunity. He darted forward, disabling the orb with a precise strike from his plasma blade. The energy field collapsed, lights flickered, and alarms blared. Chaos erupted in the war room. Ilthari officers shouted, trying to regain control. Kale used a distraction to move toward the council's main table. His goal was clear: gather as much information as possible and disrupt their plans before escaping. He hacked into the Council's database, downloading data about human colonies, their defenses, and the list of humans marked for hunting. Every piece of information was vital. Every detail mattered. Suddenly, a voice called out in alien tones, sharp and commanding. "Intruder, secure the war room." Kale froze. Guards were converging from every direction. There was no time to fight them all. He had to escape. Using a hidden vent he had spotted earlier, he climbed upward, the sounds of pursuit echoing below. The vent led him to a small observation chamber overlooking the war room. Kale took a moment to catch his breath. Below, the Ilthari scrambled, trying to understand how an intruder had penetrated their defenses. Kale smiled grimly. They had underestimated him, just as he had planned. He activated his communicator again. Message sent. Data downloaded. Prepare for retaliation. But Kale knew this was only the beginning. The Ilthari would tighten their defenses, increase patrols, and hunt him relentlessly. He needed a new plan, a way to stay ahead, to strike where they least expected. As he moved along the vent system, he noticed a small side chamber filled with alien technology, tools, weapons, and strange devices that hummed with dangerous energy. Kale studied them carefully. These were not just weapons. They were instruments of fear and control. If he could understand them, even partially, he could turn the alien strength against them. Kale's mind raced with possibilities. Each device, each piece of technology, was a potential advantage. He carefully marked the ones he could carry, knowing he could not take them all. Strategy would be key. Hours turned into what felt like days. Kale moved silently, observing, recording, and preparing. He had entered the heart of the enemy's war room, but survival was far from guaranteed. Every step was a test of skill, courage, and wit. Finally, Kale found a hidden exit, a maintenance tunnel leading away from the war room. It was narrow, dark, and risky, but it offered a chance to regroup, to plan the next move. He slipped inside, moving with precision of a shadow, every sense alert. As he navigated the tunnel, he paused for a moment, reflecting on what he had accomplished. He had infiltrated the Ilthari war room, gathered critical intelligence, and survived countless dangers. But the mission was far from over. The Council remained, the hunts were still planned, and the humans were still in peril. Kale whispered a promise into the darkness. "I will stop them. I will protect the humans. And I will make them pay for Jaren." He emerged from the tunnel into the cool night air. The city below was quiet, unaware of the war brewing above, unaware of the silent human warrior who had just walked to the heart of the enemy's command. Kale took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. He was tired, hungry and bruised, but he was alive. And more than that, he was determined. The Ilthari would soon learn that humans were not easy prey, and that a father's rage was a force even they could not ignore. The next steps would be dangerous. Every move, every decision, could mean life or death. But Kale was ready. He had entered the war room, faced the Council, and survived. And now, with knowledge, courage, and determination, he was preparing for the counterattack that would change everything. The war had just begun. Kale moved silently through the dark streets of the Ilthari colony, his heart still pounding for his infiltration of the war room. He carried critical data, plans, targets, and secrets that could turn the tide of the conflict. But he knew one thing: survival alone was not enough. Humans needed more than a shadow in the night. They needed a strike, a message, a reminder that their enemies could be outsmarted. He paused behind a tall building, listening. The distant hum of alien patrol drones filled the air. Lights flickered in the streets, casting eerie shadows. Every step forward could be his last. Yet Kale felt a thrill running through him. This was a moment he had trained for, the chance to use human cunning against a species that saw life as nothing more than a game. Kale's first move was simple: sabotage. Using the data he had stolen, he identified a transport hub where the Ilthari were moving weapons and troops. A single well-placed strike could delay their attack and save countless human lives. He crouched behind a stack of crates and deployed a small EMP charge, timing it with precision. The explosion was silent to human ears, but deadly to alien technology. Lights flickered, machinery died, and alarms screamed through the corridors. Chaos erupted. Ill-authorized soldiers scrambled, shouting in their cold, harsh language. Kale slipped through the confusion, moving closer to the main control center. He paused to observe a patrol group and noticed a human prisoner being dragged past. A young man, terrified, likely marked for sport. Kale's heart ached. He could not save every human, but he could save some. With careful calculation, he threw a smoke grenade, blinding the patrol. Then, moving faster than they could react, he freed the prisoner. The man looked up, eyes wide with shock and relief. "Go!" Kale whispered. "Run to the vent tunnels. Don't stop. Don't look back." The man nodded and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Kale alone again. Every human he saved was a victory, but it was also a reminder of the stakes. Jaren's death was still a wound in his chest, and every child, every civilian he saw, brought it back to life. Kale pressed on toward the heart of the colony, using Vent's hidden passages in the shadows as his allies. He had to reach the Ilthari command hub, the place for which the Council directed their hunts. If he could disable their communications and weapons, he could cripple their operations. Along the way, he encountered more patrols, more obstacles, but Kale's knowledge of their routines allowed him to slip past them like a ghost. At one point, a drone hovered dangerously close. Kale rolled, striking it with a makeshift electromagnetic disruptor. Sparks flew, and the machine fell to the ground useless. He moved on, silent, deadly, precise. Finally, Kale reached the command hub. The building was massive, glowing with alien energy, its walls lined with weapons, monitors, and strange devices he could barely comprehend. Inside, the council leaders conferred, unaware of the human who had infiltrated their defenses once again. Kale took a deep breath and moved closer. He planted several charges at key power conduits, ensuring that the explosion would disable communications and security systems without killing hostages. He smiled grimly. Human ingenuity was his greatest weapon. Then, a sound behind him made him freeze. A soft click, almost imperceptible. One of the council guards had returned, more alert than the others. Kale ducked into a shadow and waited. The guard paused, scanning the room, then moved on. Kale exhaled quietly, his pulse racing. The charges were in place. Kale's fingers hovered over the detonator, hesitating for only a moment. He thought of Jaren, of all the humans at risk, of the thousands who would die if the Ilthari carried out their hunt. He pressed a button. The hub erupted in controlled chaos. Lights flickered, alarms screamed, and the council's communications went dead. Ilthari soldiers rushed to contain the situation, but Kale used confusion to slip deeper inside, moving toward the council chamber itself. Inside, the leaders were panicked, their voices sharp, commanding, but no longer coordinated. Kale smiled to himself. He had disrupted their order, and now, the humans had a chance to strike back. But Kale knew he could not rely on brute force alone. He needed allies. He had learned, from his observation, that not all Ilthari agreed with the council. Some were dissenters, quieter, who doubted the council's methods. Kale had to find them, convince them, or at least use their hesitation to his advantage. He approached a lower-ranking officer, one whose eyes did not shine with the council's intensity. Kale studied the alien's behavior, waiting for the right moment. Then, in a calculated move, he revealed himself, not with a weapon, but with words. "Do you understand what they are doing?" Kale asked, his voice steady. "They kill your own kind for sport. They will destroy you too if you do not resist." The officer hesitated. Kale seized the moment. "Help me and you will survive. Refuse, and watch everything fall around you." The alien nodded slowly. Kale had expected resistance, but desperation had its own language. Together, they moved through the hub, disabling security doors, marking patrol routes, and preparing for the humans to strike. Kale paused at a map projection of the galaxy. The Council's plans were bold and cruel. They intended simultaneous strikes on multiple human colonies, designed to wipe out resistance before it could respond. Kale memorized each detail, planning counterattacks in his mind. Every colony he could warn was a life saved. Every patrol he disrupted was another victory. Hours turned into a tense night. Kale and his reluctant alien ally moved through corridors, sabotaging weapons, freeing prisoners, and creating distractions. Every step required precision, Every action was a gamble. Yet, Kale's human determination and ingenuity allowed them to succeed where others would have failed. Finally, Kale reached the inner council chamber once more. The leaders were regrouping, frustrated by the disruptions. Kale knew he had only one chance to leave a lasting mark. He activated a series of hidden devices he had planted earlier: explosives, EMP pulses, and holographic decoys. The room descended into confusion. Ill-authorized soldiers scrambled, alarms screamed, and communication systems failed entirely. Kale slipped through a side exit, moving through maintenance tunnels and shadowed passages. Every sound, every movement, reminded him that the council was hunting him now. But he pressed on. He had achieved something remarkable: disruption, intelligence, and a demonstration that humans could strike back. Emerging from the tunnels into the quiet night, Kale paused, looking back at the glowing city of the Ilthari. Fires burned in the distance, alarms echoed faintly, and chaos reigned where order had once held sway. He had changed the battlefield. He had given humanity a chance. But Kale knew the council would recover. They were intelligent, ruthless, and relentless. This counterattack was only the beginning. The real challenge was yet to come: confronting the council, stopping their hunts, and ensuring that no human would suffer like Jaren again. Kale whispered a promise into the cold night air. "This is just the start. I will fight until every one of them pays. And I will bring humanity to the stars, not as prey, but as the hunters they fear." With that, he disappeared into the darkness, preparing for the final moves of his counterattack. The war was far from over, but for the first time, the Ilthari understood that humans were not weak, not fragile, and not easily broken. And somewhere in the shadows, the first sparks of rebellion began to ignite. Fueled by one man's determination, one father's fury, and a simple truth: humans fight back. Kale stood at the edge of the cliff overlooking the Ilthari citadel. Fires from his previous strike still burned below, casting long, jagged shadows across the alien city. The council would recover from his sabotage. They were cunning, ruthless, and relentless. But Kale was ready. He had prepared for this moment. Every step, every calculation, every plan leading to the confrontation he had dreamed of since Jaren's death. The wind whipped across his face, carrying with it the metallic scent of war and ozone from alien energy fields. Kale's eyes narrowed. Tonight, he would enter the council chamber, face the beings who had killed his son for sport, and make him understand the price of underestimating a human. Before moving, he checked his gear: plasma blade charged, EMP grenades ready, and several alien weapons he had carefully salvaged during his counterattack. He had studied their use meticulously. The council's technology would now serve his purpose. Kale felt a surge of determination. This was no longer about revenge alone. It was about proving humanity's strength, courage, and ingenuity. He slipped into the shadows, moving through the narrow passages of the citadel. Guards were more alert than before, their patrols faster and more precise. But Kale had learned their patterns, memorized their routines, and was now a ghost in their midst. Every step was calculated, every motion silent. Reaching the inner sanctum, Kale paused. The council chamber doors were massive, glowing with alien glyphs that pulsed faintly. Beyond them, he knew, were the three leaders who had ordered Jaren's death, whose eyes had never known compassion, whose hands had spilled human blood for sport. Kale's jaw tightened. He could feel the weight of his son's memory pressing down on him, but it fueled him rather than breaking him. He activated his stealth device and slipped past the doors. Inside, the chamber was grand, almost ceremonial, yet cold and merciless. The council leaders stood at the center, discussing strategy. Their voices were sharp, metallic, echoing through the high ceiling. Kale's eyes scanned the room. He knew he could not take them all head-on. He would have to be smarter, faster, and unpredictable. He moved silently along the walls, planting small EMP charges near the power conduits. When detonated, they would disable security systems, giving him a brief advantage. Then, using a mixture of alien tech and his own weapons, he prepared for the strike. The first charge went off. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and the council's guards turned toward the disruption. Kale used the chaos to emerge from the shadows, plasma blade glowing faintly. One by one, he disabled guards with precise, controlled strikes. No wasted movement, no hesitation. The council turned, their eyes locking onto the intruder. Kale felt a surge of fury and clarity. This was the moment he had trained for, the moment where humanity's ingenuity and courage would face the cold efficiency of the Ilthari. "You took him from me," Kale said, his voice calm but filled with power. "You killed my son for sport. Tonight, you'll understand the cost." The council reacted instantly, moving in synchronized precision. Kale dodged, rolled, and struck, using the chamber's holographic pillars for cover. Each movement was calculated, designed to confuse and overwhelm. The leader's black eyes flared with surprise. They had never encountered a human who could think so fast, move so cleverly, and exploit their own technology against them. Kale activated a device he had salvaged earlier, a holographic projector. Multiple images of him appeared across the chamber, moving in ways that defied expectation. The council fired the illusions, wasting energy and time. Kale struck from the shadows, disabling their weapons and cutting power lines to their consoles. The room plunged into dim, chaotic lighting. One leader tried to flee, calling for reinforcements, but Kale intercepted, using a combination of alien tech and human strategy to trap it. The alien struggled, but Kale's grip was firm. "Do you know why humans survive?" he asked quietly. "Because we fight with heart, mind, and courage. Not everything can be calculated, and not everything can be controlled." The leader's black eyes widened as it realized the truth in Kale's words. The humans that had thought weak, fragile, and expendable were now standing above them, strong, fearless, and unpredictable. Kale released it with a swift push. He did not need to kill them all, not yet. Fear and respect could be just as powerful. The other two council members rallied, moving toward him with weapons raised. Kale used a combination of EMP grenades and his plasma blade to create openings, striking with precision and speed. He had learned their movements from months of observation, and now every strike counted. The chamber echoed with energy discharges, explosions, and the sounds of combat. Amid the chaos, Kale activated a secondary device, a disruptor he had designed from alien tech, that scrambled the council's communications. For the first time, the Ilthari leaders could not coordinate, could not plan. Their advantage vanished, replaced by confusion and panic. Kale moved closer, his eyes locked on the council. "This is what it feels like to be hunted," he said, voice steady and cold. "This is the cost of underestimating humanity." The leaders faltered, unsure what to do. Kale advanced, his blade cutting a path of precision and control. They were strong, fast, and intelligent, but Kale's determination, strategy, and ingenuity gave him the edge. One by one, he disabled them, leaving them disarmed and shocked. He paused for a moment, looking at the leader's defeated forms. Rage burned in his chest, but he also felt a strange calm. The Ilthari had believed they were untouchable. They had thought humans were weak. Now they understood. Kale's heart ached for Jaren, but he knew that the boy's memory had driven him to this moment, had made him stronger, sharper, and unstoppable. Kale activated a final device, a holographic broadcast to every Ilthari patrol, fleet, and command center. In simple, clear words, he warned them, humanity fights back. We are not prey. We are clever, strong, and united. Do not underestimate us again. The message spread instantly, a ripple of fear through the Ilthari ranks. Kale knew that their hunt would be delayed, their plans disrupted, and their confidence shaken. He had struck not only for revenge, but to prove that humans were a force to be reckoned with. Exiting the chamber, Kale moved through the corridors, leaving behind the chaos he had created. Fires burned, alarms rang, and the once proud council was now fractured. Humans were not safe yet, but Kale had shifted the balance. He had made them respect the unpredictability, ingenuity, and courage of a human. Outside the citadel, Kale looked up at the stars. They were vast, cold, and beautiful. He thought of Jaren, of the promise he had made, and of the countless humans still in danger. But for the first time, he felt hope. Humanity was not just surviving. They were fighting back, and they were capable of victory. Kale disappeared into the night, moving toward the resistance, carrying knowledge, experience, and a burning determination. The Ilthari would recover, but so would humanity. And when the next battle came, Kale knew that humans would not just survive, they would prevail. He whispered into the wind a promise to his son, to every human, to himself. You thought we were weak. You thought we could be hunted. You were wrong. Humanity fights, and we always will. The stars above glimmered in silent witness. Kale's mission was far from over, but for the first time, the tide had turned. The Ilthari had learned a hard lesson. Humans are not easy prey, and the heart of a father could become the spark of a revolution. The war had been brutal, cunning, and cruel, but in the end, Kale had shown what humanity could do when pushed to the edge. And somewhere out in the darkness, humans everywhere felt the ripple of that courage, knowing that they were not alone and that the fight for survival and justice was theirs to win. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to subscribe to the channel and support us. It really helps us grow and bring more videos like this. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.